Let me start out by introducing Julie Harris, the co-founder of Harris Real Estate University. She and her husband, Tim, have built the nation's largest coaching and training organization with tens of thousands of agents attending webinars and training seminars every single day. Julie, it's a pleasure to have you on, and I'd like to ask you how yourself and Tim first got started in real estate coaching and training.
Well, first I wanted to say I'm so delighted to be here. It was really kind of you to ask me, and I'm looking forward to having this discussion and kind of shedding some light on coaching and what we're about. You asked how we got started. Well, it's kind of interesting. I think, Tim and I would both agree that it was almost by accident. We were at a Howard Brinton seminar, back in the early 90s, and that was the Star Power Systems, Howard Brinton. And Howard had basically said, hey, we're thinking about doing some coaching if anybody's interested. Why don't you meet me in the back after this particular seminar segment, and we'll talk about it. And, everybody was kind of like, well, what's coaching? What's that about? And Tim and I were sitting in the audience, and it was like a flood of people went to the back of the room to talk to Howard about coaching. Now, we had just done our 0 to 10 million book. We did over 100 transactions our first year, and we wrote a book about how to do it, everything from lead generation and systems and all that kind of fun stuff. And we had been doing what we hadn't actually been calling at the time coaching. But, agents would call and they'd say, how did you do it? Can you give me some tips or pointers on this? What do you think about this idea or this script or this marketing concept? And we had been doing what is now become, this huge industry of coaching without actually calling it this. And again, this was back in the early 90s, so it just sort of one thing led to the next. And we thought, hey, you know what? That's interesting. Maybe we should actually charge for our time. What a thought, right?
Well, when you first started, I think the industry didn't really know what coaching was. So I'm wondering, can you tell me a little bit about not only what inspired you to move forward with the coaching business, but also how that was initially received?
Well, I think one of the best things about Howard's organization, and Howard has since passed away, God bless him, because, he's in all of our heads, and one of the best things about what he did was this spirit of giving and helping each other. And I think that's kind of, unfortunately, sort of a different thing amongst, kind of real estate offices. There's this sense of protecting what you have and you don't want to share your ideas. But that wasn't the case with Howard and with the agents that we were networking with back then. So I think, coaching came out of a sense of helping each other move forward. And Tim and I have always had that spirit of giving. And maybe it's because we're originally from the Midwest and, you help your neighbor out because you never know if they're going to be taken away by a tornado the next day. I don't know where that comes from, but that's just sort of how we feel about things. And life is too short to not help each other. And certainly in real estate, between clients and other agents and strange things that happen in transactions and financing and inspections, the job is hard enough without helping each other thrive and go to the next level. So that's kind of the spirit of coaching for us. What coaching has become and what for us now it really is three things. It's education, motivation, and accountability. And those three things work together to get agents to the next level, whatever that is for them. As far as back in the early days, how it was received, you asked, again, people didn't really know what it was supposed to be. So some calls were conversations about how things are going. Some of it was mindset, and it now has become a much more specific business coaching atmosphere on each and every call. So what it was back then versus what it is today, it's so much more developed and evolved, which is exciting.
Well, it seems like the spirit of reaching out and giving and connecting with other agents, though, is probably even more important today than it was back then, just because of all the volatility in the market.
That is for sure. And, one of the things that makes us different, too, is that we have actually walked in their shoes. I mentioned that we did 100 deals our first year. We didn't know back then that was kind of a big deal. We just wanted to pay off our student loans and make some money. When we got into real estate, we were sharing a car. We didn't know. All we knew is we had some specific goals, which was to pay off some credit cards that got us started, pay off our student loans. And, it has become different now. As you said, it absolutely is so critical to support each other and to help each other through not just the recession and what people lived through. And, so many agents were just steamrolled by what happened. And we call it real estate night sweats. As I said, we've walked in their shoes. And, every agent wakes up going, gosh, where's my next commission check? Or what happened with that inspection? And I can't believe this client is being this way or this agent is reacting that way in the negotiation. So, I find what a lot of coaching is, Tim, is just believing in our students, helping them know that they have their skills, obviously increasing their skills and helping them in the education end of things, but really being with them in their business. I often will ask them, who else cares about your business between you and me? Hopefully their spouse or partner or significant other, not always. Hopefully their broker or office manager, not always, So sometimes it's just being there and letting them know that they're doing a great job.
Yeah. I think one thing that you're able to really contribute is that you and Tim had a very successful career as top producing agents. And
right.
So one thing that I'd like to ask is how that matters to people who are looking at getting involved with Harris Real Estate University and how you're able to leverage your knowledge and experience as top producers in assisting and coaching agents.
Sure. It's a great question. And what's shocking to me is how many organizations that call themselves coaches or trainers, the people doing the training actually haven't sold real estate. And I always think of, Michael Phelps didn't hire a tennis coach. What is up with that? It's kind of an odd thing to think about, and I think agents don't often ask that question. You're right. We did have a rockin' real estate career. I'm not going to, downplay that. In the beginning, it's because, we had student loans to pay off, as I say. We were highly motivated just to get ourselves to zero. We were young, we were broke, and then it became, wow, this is really a great career trajectory. And we realized, the best thing about real estate, Tim, is that there's nobody saying, here's your income cap. I'm sorry, that's the top of your job. You can't earn any more. You're going to have to go transfer to a new state to earn more money or change jobs or go get an MBA. Nobody is saying that to real estate professionals. There is no income cap. You also can't get laid off. It's the best case scenario if you really embrace it and run with it. So, yeah, and, it's funny because some people say, well, big deal, 100 deals your first year. Well, we did that each and every year for 10 years straight, 100-plus transactions. We've been involved in over 1,000 real estate deals and, 100,000 coaching calls. So I think it is important that you hire a coach who has done what they're coaching you to do.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting also that you drew the comparison between athletes and agents because in both of those, there's definitely a high performance incentive. It's not something where you go in, put in your 9 to 5, and then you're done. These are definitely both areas where the coaching can help people perform better. And in sports, it's been understood forever that you have coaches and
it's kind of assumed in sports, but not so much in business. And I think that's changing. I think that if you look at the top agents in the country, by and large, they have a real estate coach.
Now, it looks like the National Association of Realtors has finally acknowledged that as well.
Yeah, indeed. And it's nice that they're promoting that. We have a lot of great relationships with them. And, I think that if you look at those top agents, most of the agents that we're coaching are in the top markets, top in their company. It doesn't matter to us if they're RE/MAX or Century 21 or Prudential or KW. The actions that it takes, the skills, the scripts, the presentation skills, the follow-up skills, all the things that we teach as core skills, really, in education. It's the same whether you're in Oklahoma or you're in Miami or Vegas or San Diego or LA. So, it is great that NAR is embracing that as well. And, we're all in this together.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Harris Real Estate University offers many levels of coaching and many courses as well. And, classes start at $97 a month and go all the way up to premium one-on-one coaching. So I'd like to ask if you could tell me about the typical agent who enrolls in the graduate coaching program. Do they come up through the ranks, so to speak, from the more task-specific programs, or is it more the performance-based approach?
Well, we have a mixture, to answer that honestly. I would say it breaks down to maybe 50% of our one-on-one students have come up through the ranks of either our short sale training, REO, the tech coaching, we have buyer agent boot camp, we have my scripts and prospecting class. And those are the $97 a month classes that are semi-private but group calls. It's very affordable coaching. I always tell students, if you do what we ask you in those classes, that's the least expensive, most effective coaching you can do. But at some point, especially when they have actually been coachable and done those things and implemented at a high level in those classes, I always get these calls where they say, you know what, I did what you asked me to do, and now I've got a lot of volume. I've never handled this many listings before. I've never had so many irons in the fire. My time management is coming unglued. I think I need one-on-one coaching now. So that's one flavor of agent that comes up through our ranks. And, you know, that's always such a pleasure and a compliment to have those calls. And I love hearing those calls. Just this week I've had several calls with agents who, you know, they say things like, well, you know, when the market crashed and I didn't have anything going on, you guys taught me in your BPO cash flow class how to keep the lights on. Now I've done that. I've rebuilt things following your systems in the group classes, and now I'm ready to rebuild for real, get back into taking listings, work on my listing presentation, all of that fun stuff. So you got kind of that category of agent, and then you have a lot of agents that have great coaching and training from various other organizations, various backgrounds. I call them my grizzled veterans. And they come because they want somebody to pay attention to their specific needs, their specific personality, their marketplace, their tendencies, what they're willing to do and not willing to do. And for those agents, you know, it's really taking them to that next level. It's, you know, it's kind of a different scenario. We've got the building and rebuilding. Then we've got people who really are killing it, but they either want more time, more balance, or to make that next jump. And sometimes somebody doing 100 deals a year, getting them to 150, you know, that's got different challenges than taking someone who was broke during the recession and rebuilding them. And we do all of that here at Harris Real Estate University. It's just kind of, that's the difference. See, our coaching is personalized to the agent, their personality, their marketplace, and their situation. We don't just read scripts out of a book.
So it sounds like then a lot of folks who might come into the program maybe hit a plateau in their careers and they're seeking, like you've said, they're seeking the balance or they're seeking to kind of break through that income barrier or something like that.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Just move. Okay.
Or maybe fill in some skills. You know, there's some REO agents out there that haven't gone on a traditional listing appointment in a few years. Now that the market's changing, they have panic attacks when they have to compete on a normal listing presentation. We have agents that, as you said, you know, there's different types of plateaus that they can hit. Some agents will say, you know, I never really have pre-qualified, and now that people are talking about all different types of scenarios and they have, you know, rental properties, investment properties, distressed or not distressed, there's all of these different flavors in real estate going on that they didn't have to deal with before. So we fill in those skills to then take them to the next level.
I mean, I know you can't make any guarantees, but what kind of change in student incomes do you typically see with the Harris Real Estate University graduate students?
Well, my goal is always to make a significant difference as soon as humanly possible with the least pain and learning curve to the student. Not that it isn't sometimes a little uncomfortable asking them to do things or pushing them a little harder than they push themselves. But I see typically, here's how I look at it, and this is maybe kind of detailed, but this will give you an insight as to what we do in the first couple of weeks of coaching. The first thing that I do is I ask them, you know, where are you at now in your business versus where you'd like to be? Paint me a picture. What would make a huge difference for you in just 90 days? And usually they'll say, well, something generic like, I want to earn more money. Well, who doesn't? I've never had anybody say, I want to earn less, you know. So they'll say, I want to earn more money. Well, how much is that and why? So we go through some very specific goal setting. And let's say that that agent is doing on average 2 transactions per month. But to make all the difference in the world, they'd be doing 4 deals per month on a very consistent basis. And it's that consistent word that kind of is true on every call. Every agent, whether they're a newbie or they're a top producer, they want consistent, monthly, predictable income. So then I, as a coach, look at what's the difference between where they're at now and where they want to be, and then I help them determine incrementally what's going to make a difference. So if they're used to doing 2 deals per month or 2 deals every other month, something like that, my first goal is to get them to do 3 deals a month for 90 days straight. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it sounds like it's not just about getting them into the higher volume, but also preparing their systems to be able to handle that.
Well, exactly, because, you know, it's funny because sometimes agents will say, well, I have a lead generation problem. I need to learn how to generate more leads. And a lot of times my coaching is asking them, is it a lead generation problem or is it a lead follow-up issue? And for many agents, if I can get them to be very skilled at their urgent lead follow-up using the scripts that we teach, that alone in 30 days can maybe even double their income on average. It depends. Most agents, they are paying for lead generation. They do have leads. They just aren't doing anything with them. So to your point, it doesn't make sense to say, all right, we're going to add all of this stuff and we're going to get you to do this gook and that gook, if they don't have the skills to handle it. So that's the job of the coaches, to help assess what kind of skills need to be built, what kind of systems and automation need to be happening, so that when they get to that volume, they don't have an epic meltdown.
Definitely. Well, I should ask, because the market is so volatile right now and it's been changing so much over the last few years, does coaching make more of a difference to student income today than it has in the past?
I think it makes an incredible difference. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a coach. I see it every day. I think the difference is the accountability, and a good coach is going to see 60 or 90 days down the road what's happening in your business. If you're listless right now, or your listings are selling so quickly that you have a hard time keeping listing inventory, and you're headed for, say, fourth quarter, you are headed for a difficult, not just fourth quarter, but a rough start to your following year. So a good coach is going to look at that and say, what do we need to do today so that in 90 days you're not feeling panicky? And see, the agents don't necessarily see that, especially as things heat up. We have low inventory for the most part. We're scrambling, competing with offers, and they're in it every day. And see, that's the thing. I've been in it every day. I understand what it's like to have 3 a.m. real estate night sweats. And they're not necessarily thinking 60 or 90 days ahead. That's my job, to say to our clients, like, Colette McDonald, one of my HGTV stars in Atlanta. I need to say to Colette, hey, are you noticing how quickly your listings are selling? You have about 6 weeks worth of inventory. If you do nothing today, you're going to be without listings. Where she's sitting there going, gosh, I got all these deals to manage. I don't know if I can deal with any other thing. And then my job as her coach is to have her doing things in the background and automate and systematize, so that if she's super busy today, there's other things coming in for her to follow up on. Because she's not going to think of it. She's doing her deals. That's her job.
Yeah, and because agents are so busy, I think a lot of them start with kind of a self-help model for coaching, where they research things online before they eventually enroll. And I'm wondering, from what you've seen, are agents getting a lot of misinformation from the blogs and websites that claim to show them what you're actually teaching as a coach?
Well, I think there is a lot of misinformation and a lot of myths out there. And, it depends a lot on their marketplace and who they're listening to and what they're watching. I always say to people, look, I'm not going to say just because I didn't teach it to you that it's not good. It might be good and sound, but do your research. Has that person actually sold real estate? What is in their mind? Are they coming from a super specific background where all they know is one type of lead generation, for example? It's kind of like people who go after for sale by owners tell everybody else that it's terrible, you don't want to talk to for sale by owners. Well, why do they say that? Because they want all the FSBOs for themselves. So you've got to look at what is affecting that person's coaching or training. For Tim and myself, we're highly invested in our one-on-one students. That's our passion. That's what we do. And all of our coaches feel the same way, or they wouldn't be working here. They're all licensed. They're coaching. They have walked the walk. Or if they're not, there's a couple of coaches that are not licensed real estate agents, like Dan Hollings, our tech coach. He's not an agent, but he is absolutely the best at what he coaches. So I think that it's not that all the information is bad that's out there. It's just that the average agent doesn't know how to sort it out.
Yeah. Now, you've talked about having 5 to 7 lead generation spokes as a part of being successful and growing your income. Can you describe this for me a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is such a critical concept, right? Agents have this tendency to go from thing to thing, the next shiny, pretty, exciting lead generator. And they'll try it out for a little bit, and maybe it'll work for a while, but then they'll go into the next latest, greatest thing. And they're all opening their email all the time with offers from, I will save your lead generation world, and the world will rain on you listing presentations, right? Everybody sells them the same idea because agents want more lead generation. Well, the issue becomes that they believe that one thing, if I just do this one thing, that's going to just really rock it, okay? And so if that doesn't work, they keep looking for that silver bullet. The only silver bullet in real estate, and this is coming from someone who has actually sold a lot of real estate, is to have what we call multiple spokes in the wheel. So here's the wheel concept. If you think of a bicycle wheel, you're riding your bike in the park, and you've got, maybe you put your bike together yourself, and you've got in the front wheel, you've got one really strong spoke, and you believe that everything's good. You have a few parts left over, but it's running. You're riding your bike, and you hit a rock. What happens to the bike?
Well, it breaks.
It breaks. You wipe out. You skin your knees. You knock your teeth out. It's not good. And you thought you had a good spoke, but you hit a rock or a speed bump and you wipe out. Well, spokes in real estate are like pipelines of business. So if you take that same bike and you've got titanium spokes, they're the best spokes in the industry. You've built it very carefully following the instructions. And you've got maybe 5 or 6 super strong spokes, and on a bike you probably want 12, right? I don't know. But you have more than one. And then you hit that same speed bump. What happens then?
Well, and then you're fine.
You're fine. You probably don't even notice the rock that you just went over. It's not even a hiccup. So in real estate, spokes are pipelines of business. So the real silver bullet is recognizing that and having multiple things that you know how to do, that you've systematized and automated as much as possible. And those combination of spokes are different for each person that we're coaching. So, for example, what Lance and Karen Kenmore up in Washington State, some of our longtime students, what they do is a combination of a radio show. They do some expired prospecting. They're very good with their center of influence, their past clients. They're good with social networking, et cetera. So their combination is different than, say, Colette over in Atlanta, who has a different combination of spokes. But the thing that unites them is that they recognize they have to have multiple things going on. It's not just one thing. If the real estate gods don't decide today to give you a referral from your best past client, and your spoke is just referrals, you've been living on referrals, but you don't luck out today, what are you going to do if you have no other spokes? You're going to be self-unemployed.
Well, given the diversity in students that you've just described, but I know also exists in the university, what would you say makes for the perfect one-on-one graduate coaching student?
That's a great question. If I could describe, I could choose how they are, I would say that they have a strong desire. They are coachable, meaning they will actually do and implement, maybe at their own speed or their own level, which is okay, but they actually do what we ask them to do. And let me be clear on that, too. I'm very careful to tailor-make my coaching to be appropriate to that agent. I've had agents come to the call and they say, just so you know, I will never cold call as long as I live, so don't ask me to do it. Well, okay, what are you willing to do? And then we work through that. We coach agents who are great at marketing, great at prospecting. The best agents are great at both. But by and large, being motivated and coachable is really all it takes. Then I'm going to get into their head and find out what is that motivation, what are their goals, how important are those goals to them. So it's not acceptable for any of our one-on-one students to go through life without specific goals. So we work on that, what's driving them, so that I can use that to help hold them accountable. And then once they've achieved those goals, we reset the goals and we get them moving forward. So really it's motivation, willingness to learn, and just be an implementer. The rest is, I'm not going to say it's easy, but if you're willing to do stuff that we ask you to do based on what you say your goals are, there's no reason you're not going to thrive.
Now, do a lot of those students have past experience with one-on-one coaching? Do you have any idea what percentage of students might have done coaching in the past and come back to it?
That's a good question. Yeah, I would have to really look at that. I would guesstimate of my own one-on-one students, and I have to look at the other coaches and Tim's clients. Probably about 50 or 60% have some kind of other coaching in their background, which is fine. Like I said, I'm never going to say, well, it's our way or the highway. Don't listen to anybody else. I don't believe in that. I believe in teaching you to do more of what works. And, of course, our Harris Real Estate University training and education is going to take them to that next level. But I'll give you an example. One of the other companies teaches to order a whole bunch of stuff and send it to your past clients. Well, this is very typical when I get one of those students who join our coaching. They've got like an office full of stuff that they haven't sent out. It might be keychains, might be postcards, might be coffee mugs, calendars, whatever. So I'm not going to tell them to throw all that away. I'm going to say, get that out there get out on the street, send it out, door knock, do whatever you have to do, use what you already paid for. And then we're going to take it to the next level with our Harris Real Estate University coaching. So, yeah, I would, it's very common for me to get somebody that's got maybe some hardcore, cold calling coaching background. And I'll ask them, how did that work for you? The call that I had right before this, she was from that program. She is really into door knocking, and she's gotten great results. She just got away from it. So if she's comfortable door knocking, I'm going to take her to the next level. The issue she was having is the script that she was using was outdated. She was not getting results. So she was taking the action, but she wasn't setting the appointments. So my job as her coach is to recognize what's the issue, and we worked on polishing her scripts to be more appropriate for the market she's in.
Well, it also seems really important to mention that obviously students are getting something out of coaching, that even if they switch coaches, even if they switch organizations, they stay with coaching. So,
yeah, by and large, agents that have had a coach in the past, they know that it makes a huge difference. I mean, think about anything you want to do in life, right? Like I play piano. I'm not going to figure all that out on my own. It's very detailed. I need a piano teacher. And I'm going to go to, my piano teacher is a guy that stars in Cirque du Soleil. He is like a piano rock star. Very intimidating, freaks me out, but I go to him because he shortens my learning curve, and I value that. When I do Pilates, right? So I have a Pilates coach. I'm not going to figure that out online. That's going to take me too long. And with real estate, there's so many different directions you can go. It's easy to get distracted and not know what's right for you, what works, what doesn't work. And, the other big thing that I see, Tim, is that agents will pay for a lot of different items and lose track of what they're paying for and what they're getting for their money. And so we look at their budget, too, and we say, what is in your budget? What are you getting for what you're spending? And if they don't know, we're going to look at that, and we're going to get rid of stuff that doesn't work, and we're going to do more of stuff that does work. And of course, we have many recommendations of things. One of the biggest things that I see, there's so many different ways to increase your income without spending a ton of money. And I think that's been a big reality check amongst agents that have lived through the recession.
Well, you just mentioned several specialty coaches, and I think that ties in with what you're doing at Harris Real Estate University, because you have specialized coaches teaching short sales, teaching REO, various areas. And so I'm wondering, can you tell me a little bit about those specializations and how they contribute to various areas of income for students?
Well, so for example, I have a lot of students in Vegas, and most of them are still quite short sale heavy. So they'll have their one-on-one coaching call with me, which is about the building of their business systems, scripts, skills, motivation, accountability. But they also will be in the accredited short sale designation class, keeping their short sale training very specific and very up to date. So they have that backbone of being able to go into that short sale class. Maybe they're doing a short sale with an IRS lien. They get into the short sale class, they look up the coaching call about how to remove an IRS lien, and they listen to that call, and it's kind of like a supportive backbone to what I'm doing.
Okay. Now, in terms of the graduate and undergraduate programs, what would have a student enroll in the graduate versus the undergraduate course? Is there any specific?
Only one thing, and that is the coaching is the same. It's all one-on-one coaching. They're going to have either me or Tim or one of our coaches who have been personally trained by Tim or myself and has Harris Real Estate University coaches certification. So they're going to have a fantastic coach no matter who they're with. That's number one. That doesn't change based on the program. The only difference is the graduate coaching is every week for $7.99 a month. The undergraduate is every other week at $3.99 a month. And quite frankly, that less expensive every other week one-on-one coaching was invented by our students who were in the bigger group classes paying $97 a month, knew they needed one-on-one coaching, but weren't quite ready to commit to $800 a month and a call every week. So they came to me and said, I'll tell you what, I know I need your coaching. I know I need one-on-one attention. Will you coach me every other week for $3.99? And that grew out of, living through tougher times in real estate, and, they were recovering their income. And that question came out a few years ago. And I said, well, you know what? It's my job to move you to the next level. And if that makes sense for you every other week at $400 a month, absolutely I'll take you on for that. So the type of coaching isn't different. It's the frequency and the cost. That's it.
Okay. Now, students also move through different classes. They'll start out with like a short sale specialty and move into the grad program. Mm-hmm. Can they keep the same coach as they participate in various classes in the university?
It depends on what they're working on. So, for example, I mentioned Dan Hollings, who is our Agent Tech Secrets coach. He is extremely specialized and fantastic at what he does. He doesn't do one-on-one coaching, so they would have him for that class, and then they would have one of our one-on-one coaches. But, you know, to answer your question, we work with our students to make sure that they're with the right person. And, you know, that gets down to knowing what their needs are, and we're pretty flexible about that. So sometimes, you know, like I mentioned Lance and Karen Kenmore, Tim has coached them, I've coached them. They can circulate amongst coaches a bit depending on what their needs are. And I may send somebody to Dan who needs that tech coaching at a super high level and have them spend some time with him, and then he's going to return them back to me, you know, full of great tech things for me to hold them accountable to. So we all work together. You know, we have there's a call right after this, which is our coaches call. Every single week, all of the coaches meet for coaches training, talk about students' needs, what's best for them, what's happening here at Harris Real Estate University. So, you know, nobody slips through the cracks, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and it sounds like working with the various coaches who have specialization in their fields, that meshes with the expertise, I guess, that Harris Real Estate University provides. You know, I recently read that other coaching organizations are actually moving towards script readers for their coaching staff. So
yeah, personally, I mean, I don't get really overly upset about too many things in life, but I do think that's kind of an outrage, honestly. Like, okay, so we're going to do, you're on your third week of coaching, I'm going to read you chapter 3 because I believe you need this. Well, that might be accurate, but it might not be. I want to know what's happening with my coaches' day-to-day operations. What are their biggest challenges? What are they doing well? You know, we do a quarterly review every single quarter. What's going well? What skills do we still need to polish? What are the unfinished projects that lead to more income? And we're right there. I mean, I might know more about their businesses than they do sometimes. It's kind of scary. But to read from a script book, because I guess the philosophy on that is that, you know, all sales training is the same and everybody needs the same stuff. And to a small degree, that's true. There are certain core skills that absolutely everybody needs. But what happens after that?
Well, and where other organizations seem to be moving towards more of a textbook approach, it seems like you're pushing more towards that intense personal interaction that really holds them accountable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, isn't that what you want in a coach, somebody that actually gets you?
Yeah, well, and again, to use the athletic parallel, you know, you're tracking and monitoring their performance and then adjusting the training as it fits. So. Well,
exactly, and that's what a good coach does. You know, it's funny because, you know, it's not unusual for me to have a call. Say a half hour ago, I was talking to somebody in Minneapolis, and then my next call is to an agent in L.A. Well, it could not be any more different, you know, followed by somebody in Brooklyn, also a completely different scenario. Different things happening in their real estate practice, market things that are different, cultural practices are different. It's crazy. And, you know, I've had to learn a lot over the years on specific markets. You know, when I'm talking to an agent, it's not unusual for me to be researching in the background, for example, what kind of distressed property are they going through? A lot of agents in Texas, you know, especially around the Austin area, there's not a lot of distressed property out there, you know. But they are friends with an agent, say, in Vegas who says, all I do is short sales all day long. And so that Texas agent is saying, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm going to look as their coach and see, well, what makes sense in your market? Their job is to take what the market's willing to give them at the time they're selling real estate. And if that means that my call to Austin is 100% different than my call to Jane Armstrong in Las Vegas, that just means that I'm tuned into my client. And if I'm reading the same exact stuff for each client, I mean, I don't know. I don't know that I'd pay for that.
Yeah. Well, Julie, I'd like to thank you again for your time. We're just about out of time for today, but I'd like to invite any listeners who are interested to visit harrisrealestateuniversity.com for more information on the coaching programs and to visit freecoachingcallsforagents.com to request a free one-on-one coaching call with a university coach. So in closing, I'm wondering if you can offer any thoughts to our listeners today.
You know, when I think about one-on-one coaching and I think about our clients, I cannot possibly emphasize enough how much we care about them and their progress and how proud we are of our existing students. We've seen agents go through all kinds of stuff in life, and life continues to go on, right? You're always going to have stuff to deal with. But we've found that dealing with it with a higher, more predictable income is easier. So I joke with my students, I tell them, you know, I want two things for you. I want you to be rich, and I want you to be happy. And how we get there, we'll sort out together. I'm not going to ever ask my students to do something that I haven't done myself. I'm never going to try something out. Gosh, there's this new whiz-bang thing that I heard about on the internet. Let's try that out. No, we're not going to do that. We're only going to do things that are tried and true, that absolutely work, that are trackable. And I'm going to concentrate on free or inexpensive first before I even mention writing a check to any kind of supposed online lead generator. There are some that are good, but we have vetted those and we have proof that they work. And I'm not going to recommend anything unless I have that proof, right? So again, I go back to I want them to have goals that they're reaching. And Tim, my closing thought is that at Harris Real Estate University, you are a superstar when you are meeting or achieving your goals. And if that means your goal is a deal a month, but you want to do it consistently and that makes you happy, fantastic. But you've thought about that goal. You have systems in place. You have education in place. You have accountability in place. You're motivated and you're moving towards something. If that means that you're like Mark Chandro up in LA and your goals are to break 1 million consistently and to do it in a specific fashion that you've learned along the road, then great. And by and large, we have everybody in between. You know, if your income goal is $350,000 and you want to have a life and what that means is A, B, and C, and you've got it written down and posted and you've done things like the real estate treasure map, which is our business plan, then you're a rock star if you're meeting or exceeding your goals. What's not okay is to not have goals and not to be working on something. You know, I mean, that's kind of boring.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Julie. Thank you again.
It's absolutely my pleasure. You're always a delight to talk to, and I appreciate everything that you do. So, you know, people can get on over to freecoachingcallsforagents.com. They can check out harrisrealestateuniversity.com, realestateinsidernews.com. We are not hard to find.